Spencer Taylor here with Touchdown Talks. Just want to give a quick update and instant reaction or near instant reaction to the Friday night game that we had just watched between the Eagles and Packers. This video may end up coming out late at night here, but just wanted to give my thoughts similar to how I did on Thursday night. Going to be trying to, throughout this season, give updates after each game day that we have in the NFL. So without further ado, let's get right into this Packers-Eagles game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. First NFL game in Brazil that we've had. A rare Friday game as well. It was actually a colder game for early on in the season. I believe temperatures in the 60s, being that it is technically winter in Brazil. Conditions otherwise were clear. However, unfortunately, the field conditions weren't the greatest, as you would have known from watching the game if you did catch it. The field conditions were not great. Players were slipping throughout the game. Even the refs were slipping, and even one ref, I'm not exactly sure if it was just from slipping on the playing surface, but one of the field judges ended up at least missing a couple plays and was getting examined for some kind of leg injury. But from what I would guess, I believe he was able to come back into the game and finish officiating, being that the broadcast didn't really mention it later. But I just don't know. And as far as the first quarter of the game, bit sloppy, being that it's early on in the season. Some of that coming down due to penalties and just offenses, defenses. Again, just getting up to speed at the beginning of the season here. Preseason, we know how it is. The Eagles, for example, didn't even play starters in the preseason, so for a lot of these guys, these were very first snaps of the season for them at full speed. So, in a live match that actually matters, of course. So obviously it was a bit slow, certainly more slow getting going than the game last night between the Chiefs and the Ravens. We only had 6 points coming from 2 field goals for the Packers. The Eagles had a more rough go of it in the first quarter. 2 drives that both ended in turnovers in enemy territory. First one was an interception by Jalen Hurts. Second was a fumble by Jalen Hurts. And with that, we did see a bit of a struggle with timing and the exchange between center and quarterback for Jalen Hurts and their new center, who, they don't have Jason Kelce there anymore, which we did also see that play a factor a bit in the tush push. They did use the tush push a couple times effectively, especially in the first half. One for a rushing touchdown for Jalen Hurts, but we also saw later on in the game some instances of it not going too well, mostly with the exchange, and that's all stuff that they'll obviously likely be able to clean up. So I don't think we've seen the end of the tush push for the Eagles, certainly. But then going into the second quarter, we really did see both teams pick up the rhythm, scoring a lot of points. Obviously, a majority of the game's points, really, at least as far as the highest scoring quarter, was the second quarter. And then, we go into the half, and coming out of halftime, both teams come out, and each team has a 70-yard drive that ends in a touchdown. And it's at this point that I want to highlight, for the Eagles, in his first game with the Eagles, Saquon Barkley had a really great game, ended up having 3 touchdowns. And crazy thing is, in his whole career with the Giants, he only ever had 1 game where he had 3 touchdowns or more. This was his very first game with the Eagles, and he already has 3. So, sorry, Giants fans. I know it already has to hurt seeing Barkley on the Eagles of any team, but to see him doing so well already in the first game, I know that's got to, maybe sting a little bit. But going back to the game, Barkley played a big part in the win for the Eagles. A.J. Brown was a big contributor, obviously, here. Devonta Smith had a good contribution. And then on defense, it was especially Zach Bond, 15 total tackles, or assisted tackles anyways, at least. And then 2 sacks, 1 coming later on in the game, and a tackle for loss. Big contributor there on defense. And then for the Packers, they did have Reed, who shined pretty well, and Romeo Doubs, both catching 4 passes, getting a good amount of yards. Reed with a touchdown as well, averaging 34.5 yards per reception. He was definitely showing as a deep threat, and in fantasy, well outperformed his projections. And I mean, he's rostered in most leagues, but as you can see, slightly over 10% of leagues, he's not even on a roster. So if you play fantasy and you don't have him on your roster, go check the waiver wire and make sure that he's not there. If he is, I would suggest picking him up. We'll have to see how his production goes throughout the season, but if it's going to go anything like today did, he's certainly a good one to go and pick up. It's just hard to have predicted the Packers' fantasy value for a lot of their players just because they're so young and they have some new pieces. And then going into later into the third quarter, fourth quarter as well, the fourth quarter was dominated by the Eagles, not necessarily in a ton of scoring necessarily. As you can see, both teams only ended up with a field goal. But unfortunately, for the Packers anyways, we had a field goal by them, and then the Eagles get the ball. They go 16 plays, 67 yards, and drain 7 minutes and 25 seconds off the clock. So that's the biggest part of that drive. They were able to do that, kick a field goal, and leave the Packers with no timeouts, and I believe it was like 30 seconds left on the clock. And really the concern, I'm sure, for Packers fans coming out of this game isn't even maybe necessarily the loss at the top of it. It's the status of your quarterback in Jordan Love. As you can see here, injured on basically the second to last snap of the game. And third to last snap of the game. And yeah, so I mean, we had a deep pass from Love to Reed. This was one of the big plays that Reed ended up getting. And then on the next play, disaster for the Packers. There's a bit of a mishandling of the snap, a bad exchange there. And then Love really made a pretty good play, getting the ball and then hurrying and giving it to Josh Jacobs, allowing Josh Jacobs to have a chance to hurry, run it out to the sideline to stop the clock, giving them 6 seconds left on the clock. But then the broadcast cameras swap back to Jordan Love, and we see he's on the ground in some pain. And from the replays, definitely some concerning looks. Probably going to end up having some kind of leg injury. Obviously, if you're a Packers fan, you hope it's as simple or easy as can be. You hope it's not anything serious, but it's always hard to know with these lower leg injuries. Some weight did come down on that lower leg pretty awkwardly, with a couple of Eagles defenders bringing him to the ground there. So, we'll just have to see how that goes and what the reports are. Unfortunately, I don't have much as far as new information for you that's all that helpful. The the post-game presser with Coach Matt LaFleur, he was asked about the status of Jordan Love, and all he was able to say is, I don't know. He was pretty short on most of his answers with the press, obviously was not in the best moods, which makes sense. And he wasn't even necessarily like angry looking, just obviously kind of down, as I'm sure most Packers staff and players, fans are, just concerned for your franchise quarterback. Nobody wants to see their franchise quarterback or any star player or player go down this early on in the season on basically like the final play of the first game. You don't want to see that. So we'll just have to see. As updates come out, I'll make sure to update you on Instagram and on YouTube. I'll make some posts, and in my next upcoming video, which should be Sunday night, I'll make sure to update you. I'm sure by then we'll probably have a good bit more of an idea of what the status is and what the injury specifically is, and maybe an idea of some kind of timetable for Jordan Love, if he's going to miss time at all or how much that's going to be. Before I finish off this video, do also want to give one more piece of injury news. If you're a Bengals fan or you're a fantasy manager, T. Higgins was listed as doubtful downgraded to doubtful for this upcoming game the Bengals have on Sunday against the Patriots. Obviously, for the Bengals, may not be the biggest concern that he's not going to play, at least for this week. I mean, you got the Patriots. Should be certainly one of the easiest games you're going to have on your schedule this year, but obviously there's concern there for T. Higgins already to start the season. It's a hamstring injury, and certainly if you're a fantasy manager that has him on your team, go check your lineup. Make sure to swap him out, put him on your bench for whoever you can at wide receiver. But thank you for watching this far. Please feel free to like the video, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. Those will help make sure that you are able to see more of my content. And, if you love the NFL, not going away here. We're just getting started. Thank you for your support. Let me down in the comment sections down below. What's your favorite team? If they haven't played so far yet this week, who is the team? How do you expect the game to go? What are you feeling like? If you are a fan of one of the 4 teams that have already played, how are you feeling? Are you feeling up? Are you feeling down? Do you feel like this game was fluky? Let me know all that down below. I'd love to discuss with you and see how you're feeling. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy college football Saturday. And, of course, first NFL Sunday of the year. Super exciting. And I will see you Sunday night. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.